Hi guys, it's Pete from MyJewelryBench.com. Today what we're going to do is we're going to work on this 18 size watch. This is a watch that a viewer sent to me and we need to do some work on it. It is a very good working watch except for the fact the mainspring is worn down completely, as well as it is no longer making contact with the barrel pin. So we're going to go ahead and change that mainspring only. The watch was serviced not too long ago and it is running really well when we can get some strength on that spring. So all we're going to do is an exterior restoration, as well as change the mainspring, and then we're going to put it on a computer and time it, and we'll send it back to the customer. Before we get started with the next part of our video and our tutorial, I just want to talk to you a little bit about Blender Gems. Some of you guys know about Blender Gems, some of you don't. Blender Gems is a library of a couple hundred models that I've done in Blender that you can use with any 3D program. All of these models are tested with 3D printing and have all been remeshed to work as like Lego blocks, where you can pull in certain designs, create your own models, modify them in any way you want, and then print them in 3D or use them for jewelry designs. This helps support my channel, guys, and if you want to purchase it, it is $50. You can get it available at myjewelrybench.com, or if you are a Patreon supporter at tier 2, which is a $5 per month level, you get all of these models, any updates, as well as other models that I do for free at that support level. Again, all this goes to help my channel, and I appreciate all the support I get. Pocket watch. This was sent to me from a viewer, and we are going to do an exterior restoration, pretty much just a polish. I'm not going to get any of the dents out, but I'll try to get some of the microscopic scratches out. We'll clean up the crown, the clamp here, as well as the case a little bit. The crystal is in very good shape. Customer's complaint is that the mainspring's broken. So let's get into it and find out what's going on. Okay, so there's the face. We can see this is a stem wind stem set. We pull the crown out to the first click and we can set it and wind it with the stem in the 0 position. First things first, let's get the hands off. I'm going to use my hand tool here. Put the hands aside. Get that second hand off. Okay, 3 hands off. And now to get this watch decased, what we have to do is pull the crown out, 1 click, and then we could use a fingernail, or I'm going to use my little screwdriver here, and I'm going to flip that open. And you can see the watch is running. And it is very clean. I want to go through that and just mention that again. The watch is extremely clean. The biggest problem we have in this watch is that the mainspring is just not holding enough lifespan for the watch to work. So let's get this decased. If you look closely, you can see that these are half screws, which means we only have to turn these, just loosen them just enough to get this decased. And I've got one done. I'm going to get the other one. Now the movement should just come right out of the case. With the watch decased, now the next step is to pull the balance cock off with the balance staff and the balance wheel. So I'm going to take that off as a complete set. So I've got that loosened up. I'm going to grab a pair of tweezers here, just see if we can take that off. Put that aside so it's out of our way. And now I'm very gently going to just loosen up this balance cock. Just like so. And I'm going to lift it out of place. Good strong hairspring. So now that's in a safe spot. Next thing I need to do is get this wound down. So with a watch like this, we typically have, so right here you can see there's a hole here, and on that hole is a locking click,
and if I push down on it, it will release whatever tension is on the spring. So I'm just going to push in. See if we can get that pushed in. It sounded like it's pretty loose as it is. That's not bad. Okay, now let's grab the mainspring barrel out of this. I'm going to loosen the 2 plate screws that cover the mainspring barrel. Put those aside, and I'm gently going to lift this off the movement. And there we go. Now I have to get this wedged out. And this is our culprit right here. This is the mainspring barrel in this watch. Most 18 size Elgin's full plates are very similar. We're just going to release that. Gently lift it out. Not to do any damage to it. And if should just come right out. And here you can see this is the click, and this is that locking click right here that holds our gear and adds power to the spring. So when we wind this watch, this turns this way, counterclock, or actually clockwise, and then this click keeps this tension on the spring. When we stick in a screwdriver to release that, what we're doing is we're pushing in very carefully, and if you look close, you can see that I push in and it releases the tension on that click lock, and that takes the tension off the mainspring. So I'm just going to put that aside, and now we have to open this up. So let's get this barrel opened up. Now let's take a look at the barrel. I see some debris in here right now. Right there. That's a piece of mainspring, so that tells me that the mainspring's kind of getting to the end of its life. Let's get this post out. Okay. So there's our barrel post, and that is what we turn. And you can see it's got a little hook on it that grabs one side of the mainspring, the inner loop of the mainspring, and then that applies pressure to the mainspring as it's wound, and then the barrel supplies the power to the watch. I'm going to put that aside, and we're just going to take a look at this real quick. It doesn't look too dirty, it just looks a little worn. Okay, but this spring I can tell is kind of old. And again, we can see there's a lot of debris in here. So what I'm going to do is get the spring out, and we're going to gently do that by just lifting out the spring. And then I'm going to take my fingers and just go around the spring and gently lift it out, just like so, until the entire spring comes out. I won't do that on camera because this spring is pretty long. Okay, so I'm back. So here's the barrel now that it's empty. We've got our barrel cap. And then we've got our old mainspring, and this has seen better days. It should be nice and evenly coiled. Looks like it was probably put in by hand, judging by the fact that it's got that little coil to it, and little bits and pieces of it are coming off. So what do we do now? How do we identify this spring? We look at the barrel, and we can tell what kind of a spring it is. For instance, we have a hole end, and the reason I can tell we have a hole end is if you look closely on the barrel, you'll see that there is also a little claw here, a little more debris, little claw right there that grabs a little hole in this end of the mainspring, and that hole, if we look at the end of the mainspring, is, let's get this in focus, right there. Okay, so that is a good way to identify whether we have a T-end spring or a hole end spring or a pressure fit spring. This is neither. This is a hole end. So I'm going to grab an Elgin hole end spring, and we will get that ready. Okay guys, I'm back. I've got my old mainspring here from the customer's watch, and I've got the new mainspring, and if we look closely, you can see this is very decolored now. It's not terribly bad, but it's got some tension. There's some oil that's been just gotten into the metal, and this no longer has spring. So if we look again, if you look at the coil of this spring, you'll notice that it goes all the way around and coils up. This does have the little tension piece to hold it in place, and that looks like it should. And what we have to do now is get this spring into this barrel, but before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and clean these parts just to make sure the inside of the barrel is very clean, and then we'll just put a little light oil on this and put it in the winder. Okay guys, I'm back, and I've cleaned the mainspring barrel. I've cleaned the post for the barrel. Get that into focus. The barrel is all free of debris now, and I can insert the mainspring into that. So the next thing we need to do is make sure that we orient the spring correctly. The spring has to go in the right way, and I need to get my mainspring winder. Pull that out of my drawer. So I've got a mainspring insert, and this is my winder, and I'm just going to make sure that that fits into the barrel. So you can see my mainspring winder fits perfectly into the barrel. That's just what we want. And we need to determine which way the post goes into this. So the watch will only work in one way. So now in this particular watch, we have a mainspring barrel that gets wound clockwise. So I need to get this wound in a clockwise manner into this barrel. So I am going to get my mainspring and put it on my mainspring winder, and then I'm going to grab my little winding tool for my mainspring. This is the winder, and I'm going to start winding down or winding in the mainspring barrel. So there's the mainspring. It's all wound in the winder, and now I have to very gently get this out of here. There's a couple little tricks I'll use. I'm going to move these little parts out of the way. I will sometimes grab a razor blade so that I don't pull out the mainspring as I'm trying to disengage the locking mechanism for the winder. Okay, so now we have our mainspring all nice and wound into the mainspring winder. What I need to do now is get this little hole locked into this little claw, and once we get that in position, then we can release the spring into the barrel. So I'm just going to push this in. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to push that in, twist and turn, and then I'm going to slowly turn this until I feel that claw grab onto the mainspring. Now if you look very carefully, I'll try to do this, I'll try to show you on the camera, but if you look very carefully, the end hole of our mainspring is wedged into that claw, and that's what holds the mainspring to the side of the barrel, or the inside of the barrel. So with that done, I'm just going to hold that there. I'm going to use a tool just to hold down that spring into the one position, and I am going to push the button down to release the mainspring. And now, I don't like touching that with my hands, but here we go. We've got that mainspring all brand new into the barrel. Again, just examine the barrel, then you'll determine which side that goes onto. So we have to look at the claw on the barrel here, or the post, and we can see that it goes in just like this. And if I can get this done on camera, that would be great. So I'm going to wedge that in there. I may have to play around with this spring a little bit, so just bear with me. I'm going to do that off camera, guys. Okay, I'm back. Now let's see if we can get a good shot of this. I hope you can see it on camera. I think we'd be able to. So we already know that the claw here is attached to the whole end of the mainspring, and the inner loop, or the hole that's on the inner loop, if we can see good, we should be able to see the claw that's on this post holding in or connecting to the hole that's on the end of the mainspring. That looks pretty good. I am going to grab some mainspring oil and give this a little bit of oil. You don't put a lot on here, just enough to keep it lightly lubed. And this will get into the spring and work its way through over the course of the next few days of running as we wind it and unwind it. Okay, pretty happy with that. The next step is to take our cover, and we are going to snap on our cover. I have a nice pair of parallel pliers that will squeeze this together, and these are metal, but they are scratch resistant. And what we want to do is we want to clamp this down using the parallel pliers, not standard pliers, so that it squeezes the cap of the barrel into the barrel itself. Okay, once that's done, now it's time to reinsert our barrel into the watch. Okay, so this is not a difficult piece to do here. Now sometimes these watches have a safety pinion on them, so what I like to do is just kind of poke around and see if the safety pinion's in good shape, and it is. What happens is if the mainspring barrel unwinds for any reason, this is counter threaded so that this gear here will come off of the first gear and not cause damage. Otherwise, if this was welded onto the gear itself, then what would happen is if the mainspring let loose and the barrel unwound, it would destroy this first gear and sometimes the second gear also. So a safety pinion is there for that purpose, basically to save and protect the watch from any damage. Now putting in the mainspring is pretty simple. We just have to get it, we have to get this keyed surface into this keyed gear. And what I like to use is my mainspring winders when I am working on these. So I'm going to grab the appropriate size mainspring winder. I believe it's this one. Okay, I'm going to put that in there. And now we're going to start turning. Do a little bit of pre-assembly here. And now I can put my winder in, and we are connected. That's good. Okay, so with this plate back on, now I'm going to go put these screws in position. Now I'm going to take my mainspring winder, or my watch winder, and I am going to start winding that spring. It's not slipping, that's a good sign. The last step for the movement is to put we're going to put this back in position. This is our balance cock, our complete balance assembly. I'm going to put that in at an angle, get that positioned. We're almost in position. Again, I'm compensating for the position of the roller jewel. So we're going to come in at a slight angle and then move that in like so. And now I'm going to take my balance screw, my balance bridge screw, and put that in position. And when we tighten this up, we have to be careful here, because what we want to do is not tighten this up too badly. Just a little bit at a time. Make sure that that watch is running. And then I'm going to gently tighten this down a little bit more. And we are back in business. And Joel's complaint, thank you Joel by the way for sending this watch in, was that the spring didn't wind all the way, and now you can see we have a full wind. The watch is running and it's ready to be reassembled once we get that case polished up. So I'm going to go polish that case, guys. I will be back in a few minutes after I polish and clean that case, and we will reassemble Joel's watch and get it back to him as soon as we can. Okay, so I've got the watch running. It's running good, and as you can see, we'll just turn that around. As you can see, it's still running really well. I just went through and cleaned and polished the case, so that is looking good. I also did the bezel ring and cleaned the glass, so that's looking good. So the next step is to reassemble this watch. Now, with these hinge cases, we find a little problem trying to get everything lined up correctly. So it just takes a little getting used to. And what I have to do here is, if we take a look at, this is where the stem would poke into the watch. It's located on this watch at the 12 o'clock position. And you can see right here is the stem right there by my thumbnail. And what I have to do is get the pocket watch into this frame here and then get it ready to be mounted. So we're going to put this lined up so it's about in the middle, and there is a little key position, very difficult to see, but in the case frame there should be a little key for that. And let's get back there, 12 o'clock. Let's get this pushed back in, push down. I'm just going to tighten them up so that they're holding the watch movement in the case. Okay, so now that's set, and now we can okay, so Joel's watch is just about done here. I've got the case put back together. Everything's tightened up. It is clean, polished. I didn't do a full service on the movement. Remember, we only did the mainspring. So I am going to get the hands reseated onto the watch now, and we will get this back to keeping good time. So now, first thing I like to do is put the hour hand on. So I am going to put the hour hand on. Get that positioned onto the hour wheel and gently push it on very lightly. Okay, with that done, I'm going to line it up. We'll line it up at the 3 o'clock position. Now I'll grab the minute hand. We'll get the minute hand set, aimed at the 12 o'clock location, and I'm just going to put that into position like so. And now I'm going to just make sure that the hands don't touch each other and that we have enough clearance where our second hand goes. Looks pretty good. Last but not least, we'll put the second hand on. Gently put that into position, and once I know that's tight, the last step is just put the crystal and bezel back on. And then hand tighten that, and there we have it. I don't remember what time it is. I think it is close to 1:30, so I'm going to set this to 1:30. There you go. One repaired pocket watch, clean, polished, and ready to go. Joel, I hope you like your watch. It's a nice watch. I know you've had it for quite some time. It does look really good. It is keeping very good time. The computer tells me that it's only losing a few seconds per day, which is pretty good. You may notice that where you live, it may run a little differently in the summer than it does in the winter because of the temperature extremes. Just like here in Florida, we have huge extremes where it's cold in the winter and really, really hot and humid in the summertime, and that will affect any mechanical watch. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. It helps my channel grow and get more views, and I appreciate all that you guys have done for me. Thanks again a lot, and have a great day.